Hi, I'm Susie Gitzeg, Marketing Director and a passionate leader of empathetic high performance teams. Welcome to my LinkedIn video series, Leading Questions, where I dive into real conversations with authentic leaders. So today, my guest is Jenny Newman. She's a leader I've always admired for her ability to really build strong teams over the years. And so I'm really excited to have her on Leading Questions. So Jenny, welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm like excited to be able to do this with you too. It's just like having a cup of coffee, just
I love it. I should have brought my coffee. I didn't bring it, but next
I
time.
say that, I'm like, where is my coffee? It's
I have
not
my
existent.
very large water bottle, so maybe I'll drink from that. So
Same. The cup of champions right
look at
here. It's
that. Even the
just
same color. We're
stay
good.
hydrated,
We're good.
everybody.
We're hydrated. Okay, so Jenny, we're going to go back in time at some point in your life. Was there a
Yes.
pivotal moment in your life that you knew you were interested in being a leader, that someone else saw it in you or you saw it in yourself?
I think it actually was right at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was this moment that shifted in my life that the leader at the time, who I'm going to give a shout out to, Havlata Perkins, one of my favorite leaders, she something happened with my body, and I'll just be like totally authentic and real. Like I
Yeah.
was diagnosed with MS, which for many people that may be watching this, maybe the first time they're hearing that. And the
Hmm.
way that that kind of manifested in my life was this idea of I have been doing this thing that I've loved my entire life of like giving back, teaching people, teaching adults, like creating, coursework and courseware because I'm in the L&D world. Um, but I hit this moment where I was I don't think I can do this anymore. My body cannot physically be on stage every single day. That
Wow.
energy, or what I like to call like your battery, my battery,
Mm,
because of this recent medical change and this thing that happened in my life, my battery just wasn't the same. And
yeah.
I wanted to continue that legacy, but how do I do that if I'm not teaching others how to do it? And this is where, my leader at the time said, well, maybe it's just time to stop being on stage and maybe
Mm,
be behind the stage, like behind the curtain. Allow and teach other people how to do it, how to get out there, how to train, how to teach, how to develop, adult education. Maybe it's your turn to try that. And it was like this little seed that manifested into this blossoming tree where I was like, you're so right. Like I am so tired, physically, but my mind is racing at a totally different exponential level. It's just time to like take a step back by allowing others to move forward. And that was this like pivotal moment for me where I thought leadership wasn't really about me being in front. It was
mhm.
about me being behind other people and supporting them and moving them on their journey while watching like all the little seeds I've planted along the way grow. Kind of like how in springtime, on our our highways, they have like these wildflowers that are just everywhere. I kind of wanted to be that person that was like sprinkling wildflowers everywhere so you could kind of
Oh,
see the people that I've either touched or molded or impacted in some way, shape, or form. And that was that pivotal moment for me. It truly, truly was.
that was put beautifully, Jenny. And I love the visual of all of the flowers growing. And I'm like, wow, it seems like with people like us, when you see that, when you see someone taking something and moving it forward and it feels joyful, it feels exciting to see that they're
Yeah.
the next ones. It's interesting because you know that I grew up in social media and
Mhm.
a lot of what you say rings really true for me, where I remember I was the one crawling on the floor with the camera and
Yes.
getting down there and live tweeting all the things. And it's
Yeah.
not it's not exactly the same. And I don't want to make it feel like it is, but I felt tired. I felt,
Yeah.
I'll be 40 this year. And,
Mhm.
it was time several years ago. It was time for the next generation. And
Mhm.
where I'm really excited to move in another phase of like my journey and moving into leadership, and really exciting to see them have that opportunity to do those things and do them so well.
Yeah.
And that you can find joy in a decision that probably didn't come initially from joy, but brought out
It
something in you
it
didn't know was
didn't.
there.
And I think that was it. It was this very, very dark part of my life. And you know that like
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, everything was just kind of weird anyways, and we were all trying to make it, and things were shifting. The way that we were working was shifting. The way that we were thinking
Mhm.
about community was shifting. The way that we were thinking about our own mental, physical health was shifting, and that was so forward for me, because of this MS diagnosis, that
Yeah.
essentially I thought, okay, if I want to continue on, I really need to foster and culture this, and start growing my own garden, so to speak. And that was that point. I wanted to be able to cultivate something that could continue to live on, beyond my own capacity.
Yeah.
My body doesn't allow me to do some of the things I used to do on stage, or, in front of people, or even throughout the day. But that doesn't mean I can't have so many other people a part of my team doing that, and living their best life, and continuing to have a balance that like really is important to me now. Like it just shifted everything I thought about for work, and how I approach it, and how I really teach my people what that looks like for them, um and really truly how they continue to cultivate their own gardens, so that like these
Mhm.
gardens are perpetuating over and over again, kind of like paying it forward, but
So
with
let's talk about,
talent.
yeah, so like how you started growing your gardens. You're there, you're on your journey. And like I said, I always admired from afar the culture that I could see your team had. And I know that
Oh,
starts with
that's very
you.
kind.
No, I mean it, I truly mean it. How did you begin? How did you start growing the culture, especially, during this strange time of remote work? What did it look like
Yeah.
for you and your team?
Well, okay, so I think it really starts with a core belief that I have, that like every individual has this deep needed, just this deep needed aspect to be understood.
Mhm.
And because I was living at the time, I wasn't really telling anybody about kind of where I was,
Yeah.
mentally and physically. I wasn't really talking about this, until this podcast. So really, it's what,
Why
two
not?
2.5 years later at this point. But I didn't want to do that to them. And I
Mhm.
remember thinking I wanted them to feel like you have a safe place where someone is truly getting to know who you are, what motivates you, what brings you to work, what do you do outside of the four walls of this virtual environment? Like
Yeah.
what's driving you, on a daily basis? And for everybody that was different. And I think it was really important to know that not only their work motivation, but their passion motivation, because that's the whole person. And then
Mhm.
I would bring in and I would ask questions about their health, whether that was physical health or mental health. And I would make space for that. And it started to slowly change the way that I interacted and how I communicated about the things I needed to do to take care of myself. So, really
Oh.
leading by example there. Um, but to cultivate this, I had to build the trust first. Like, I wasn't just placating. It wasn't just lip service, like, "Oh, this is another leader coming by and saying, 'I care about your well-being,'" you know?
Right.
So I actually, like, truly cared, and here's why. Here's my example of why. And I truly care about who you are outside, because that impacts what you bring each day to work too. And so if you are a brand new mom, you're dealing with so many other things that I don't have to deal with right now. If you are coming in and you've had like your sister move in with you, your family dynamic has changed. If one of your pets, your most beloved pet has passed away recently, that affects the way that you are thinking and feeling. And that humanity at its core is what people really truly like. They want you to know and they want you to understand where that is for them, whether it is positive or negative or some gray area in between. And that's what I worked on every single one on one. That's what I worked on building with each team member, is this trust factor. And then ultimately cultivating moments that were not about work, that were about life and how we are living our life. So, for example, we had a thing called Chill Club, and Chill Club was every month, once a month, we would meet in a virtual setting, and you could not talk about work. I
I
mean,
love
we
it.
had like zero chat. If you brought it up, if you tried to text, if you tried to like Teams chat or, or side Slack, if you will, nip it in the bud. Um, because I wanted it to be a place where we legitimately chilled. It was important to chill together and to learn about each other in different lights. So our chill clubs would have themes sometime. One time we did a spa day. One time we did like
Oh,
favorite movie day. One time we did what we call walkie talkies, where we went out into our local trails or like a green belt if you had it, or a sidewalk. Doesn't really matter. You could walk around your house, and we just got to know each other, from the past. Learned that one of my team members was like a cheerleader and has like connections to some famous people that I'll let her tell that story someday. But you start to really pull into the golden cracks of people, the things that make them glow from the inside out.
mm,
And by allowing the space for each person to glow in their own time and to continue to kind of evolve, but together, it created a really safe, it created a very tight knit family atmosphere where when we asked for help and when there was a project that needed to be done and when somebody was down, everyone stepped up to fill in that hole, and everyone stepped up to take care of the other person. And it just created an incredible environment for us to continue to grow together versus, on some teams out there, there is this really weird toxic competitiveness
mhm.
that I did not stand for. And I think part of that is my history in athletics. There is no toxic teammates, there are no toxic competitiveness, you know, it ruins the team atmosphere. And I was a big proponent of that. That was kind of a day one thing that I discussed with each of my team members. And so instead, we focused on the things that we could control, the things that essentially helped us like identify as individuals and let that glow and grow, so to speak, over time.
I talk a lot with my team about like, what does being your authentic self at work really mean? Do you want to be your authentic self? Do you want to be a version of yourself? Like, what does that actually
Oh
mean?
my
And
gosh.
it was
Yes.
such a,
Can we
so my
talk
team,
about that?
yeah, so my team called me out. They were like, it's sort of a buzzword, like authentic self. What does that mean? But to me, what it ended up meaning, like, is that you felt safe actually being yourself. And a lot of the things that you talked about, we could talk more about it, that you felt safe raising your hand and saying, I'm overwhelmed. Or you felt safe sharing something going on in your life and knowing that you weren't going to be immediately judged for having that and raising your hand. And I
Oh yeah.
also absolutely agree with you that a mark of a strong team, and that's the team culture I have on my team as well, is like someone's going through something, you
Mhm.
feel, hopefully, I hope, 100% confident that your team is rallying around you.
Yeah, you
Mhm.
rally to pick them up because, there is going to be a day when you're going to need them too. And we
Absolutely.
had that. We had that, over and over and over again. And so, yeah, it's really important to start with the individual and help them grow together. That is just a thing that I do naturally with people
Hmm.
too. Like I don't think that authenticity means you compromise your overall belief system. And my overall belief system is to start with the inherent like worth and value of people. Um, that means everything. And then from there, comes the work and what really from there comes the motivation of why they're there. And then comes the work that you want to try to align. And so I have always tried to align all of those things so that it doesn't feel like you're coming and you're working on a project or you're doing this thing. And sometimes you will, but it is more that I am aligned with the thing that I love to do because I'm doing it with people that I love doing it with.
Mhm.
Um, so it just, yeah, it was and is an environment that I continue to build no matter who I talk to or what team I'm on or who I'm leading along the way. This is just part of my inherent authenticity. So,
It's funny. I know you said that the moment that you were talked to about leadership was like an aha moment for you. I bet if we go back in time into your sports career, that there were other moments that maybe you didn't even realize. And what's funny is a thread
maybe?
with so many like folks that have been on my podcast. I did not grow up in sports. I did grow up in competitive cheerleading, which I do consider to be a sport. Um,
Yes,
but
that's
but that
tough. I could
but
never
that
do any of that.
can't do it anymore. But
Susie, I
that team
ran in a
morale.
circle.
That team
No
morale
problem.
and that idea like we're all in it together, and if someone's down, you pick your teammate up, and
Yeah,
we're going through it together. You can't succeed or fail without your team members. It feels like, I don't know, we'll see how many other sports folks I have on my podcast, but seems to be a thread, and I know that was a big part of your background.
yeah, it was. And that's a big part of who I used to be, but there are
Mhm,
echoes of it
mhm.
that come forward. And I'm glad for the good echoes, the positive
Yeah.
echoes, because it could go both ways, right? And some of the positive echoes come through about team culture and
Mhm,
what I want to build for my own future. And that's the thing.
mhm,
Like we get one precious life, and I want this to be the best it can be.
mhm.
And that means taking care of myself. It means taking time to care about others. It means cultivating an environment I want to be in every day too.
That's key, right? Because we're doing it for our teams, but we're also doing it for ourselves, like an environment where you feel happy and comfortable and supported as a leader, as a team
Yeah,
member is that, and we have more control over what that's going to be
right.
like. And
Right.
that is I think good control, control to say, I
Mhm.
don't want a competitive environment, or control to
Mhm.
say, this is how we show up for each other. How can we all get there together? And that feels good, I
It
think.
does. Yeah, Dr. Covey had a saying that was like, what is in your circle of concern versus what's in your circle of control? And
Mm,
ever since
yeah.
really understanding what is outside of my control and I can't touch, okay, and then focusing on the things that I can, it has also strengthened the things that I can tell my team members that we will or will not do, right? That we
Mhm.
will or will not focus on, that we can and cannot, do anything about. And that was and has always been something that I'll preach. Like there's just so much outside of our control, but here are the things that we can, and we're going to cultivate this in a positive light. And so, tending to your garden, you're going to have weeds, right? Getting back to the garden thing,
Mm.
you cannot control the weather. You cannot control, whether your neighbors are going to be, tending to their garden and their weeds, and whether they're going to blow into your garden, right? You can't control whether it's going to be an environment like this, if the soil is going to be nurturing. What can you control? Well, you can add nutrients to the soil. You can pull the weeds out.
Mhm.
You can essentially, build a fence to kind of block and tackle, if you will, some of the weirdness that may be around you from your neighbors. Who knows? But this is getting out of control now.
I like
Um,
this metaphor though. I'm going to use it. So good.
but essentially, like, you get to cultivate your own garden and create what that is. And whether you make it really stiff and rigid, or whether it's a backyard of wildflowers, I mean, that's totally up to you, but at least it's yours.
All right, Jenny, last question for you. Advice for anyone who might want to be a leader, whether they're a little kid or someone just considering it in the future. What would you say?
Um, I would say that if you're not ready to have responsibility and ownership for another family member of sorts, then you probably shouldn't be leading.
Mhm.
um, and I say this because I think leadership takes incredible empathy and understanding. It
Mhm.
takes time and kindness. It takes due diligence too, and and drive, like a driving factor. Like, you don't want your kids per se to get in trouble at school if you have children. You don't want your people to not do the work that is there in front of them, but to create a family atmosphere or a place where your kids feel safe, or that they feel like they should be doing what they've been asked to do. You've
Mhm.
got to create a place that matters to you and matters to them. And I think that takes great empathy. I think it takes great responsibility. I think it takes this ideal around building a family atmosphere that you care about. You should care about these people in real life. Um, and that then flows and fosters people that can go out and do this again and again and again. And it's like you would with your own family members, or how you're building your family. um, I think of it the same way. And I say this because I don't have children. When I have a team, it feels like I'm responsible for these people, their lives, their fortitude, their path forward. That responsibility is heavy, and it's an honor.
Absolutely.
And that for me is the best advice. If you're thinking about this, are you ready for that responsibility? If you are saying yes, then full speed ahead. If
Mhm.
you are questioning whether that is too much, then maybe you need to explore a little bit more. So, but that's my 2 cents
It's a
for us
good
to take away.
It's a good 2 cents, and I think it is incredibly important for people to think about before they enter into it. We're in a new generation of leadership. I hope this generation sticks, and it is the generation of
Mm,
empathy and compassion and understanding. It hopefully is far from what leadership used to be, and I hope
yeah.
this trend continues. So
Ah,
thank
me
you.
too.
Thank
Me
you,
too.
Jenny, for your insight and your vulnerability. And
Yeah.
I think there are so many things that the audience and I definitely am taking away from the conversation. So
Oh,
I
well,
appreciate
thank
you.
you so much, so much. Grow your garden. Continue it to throw your seeds about. Well, that nope. We're just gonna say grow your garden. So
Grow your garden.
grow your garden.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Jenny. And audience, please tune in next time for another episode of Leading Questions. Have a good one.